Monday, February the 8th, 2021, are Mayor Stephen C. Angle, Vice Mayor John W. Sneed, Council members J. Tyler Lee, Mark H. Newbill, and Billy W. Stockton. Also participating via conference phone this evening are several department heads, as noted.
Thank you. Pledge of allegiance, please.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Once again, a reminder, we're still under orders from the governor. We can't have to limit how many people can gather, so still citizens are not allowed to attend meetings. We hope you're able to keep up via the internet, and certainly if you have questions, please let us know. All right, everybody received a copy of the agenda. Are there any additions or corrections? And I have one, do I, James?
Yes, sir. We wish to amend the first closed session item.
Go ahead.
The first closed session item under section 2.2-3711A.1 of State Code concerns a personnel matter regarding the Board of Zoning Appeals. Staff asks that you amend that to include personnel regarding the Board of Zoning Appeals, the Town Manager's Office, Town Council, as well as the Economic Development Authority.
Okay. Anything else?
No, sir.
Is there a motion to approve the amended agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. Motion carries. Before we go on, I regrettably must announce that Council Member Bobby Cundiff has resigned his seat on Town Council effective today. We will certainly miss his counsel and dedication to Rocky Mount and its citizens, and we certainly wish him well as he goes forward. Thank you for your service, Mr. Cundiff. All right, we'll move next to a public hearing. First, the disposal of town property behind 325 Franklin Street, formerly known as Angle Street. Mr. Irving.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The first of your two public hearings this evening, and by way of calling it public hearing, that your town clerk has asked that comments or input relative to this business item be submitted to her. She will make those comments available to town council as well as make them a part of the record. State Code 15.2-1800 requires that localities hold a public hearing prior to disposing of real property. Some time back, the town of Rocky Mount closed the intersection of Angle Street and Claiborne Street, and this was in conjunction with the library project. This left a small portion of Angle Street suitable for abandonment. It was not abandoned at that time. To orient council, an aerial view of that area as well as a street side view of that area is included in the packet. Some years back, the owner of 325 Franklin Street, LLC, Mr. Philip Bain, asked the town if that portion of suitable for abandonment right-of-way could be used for his redevelopment of the old furniture building. At that time, council signaled that they were inclined to do so, but they wanted it to be in conjunction with a set of site plans and a natural progression of the redevelopment of the property. We have reached that point. The owner has submitted the plans that are attached to this agenda item in order to obtain a zoning permit so that a building permit can be obtained. Unfortunately, the proposed development does use a portion of that right-of-way, and the zoning permit cannot be issued, nor can the building permit be issued until the developer is given legal access to that right-of-way. It has been town council's consistent view that the right-of-way is available to help redevelopment efforts in the town of Rocky Mount. However, town has been concerned over the years that the property not be merely used to be additive to the parcel, A solution to that is that if it is council's wish to enable this redevelopment by using this right-of-way that's previously closed to street traffic, that it can be done so with a clawback clause. One way of doing that is in lieu of deeding it, you can grant a lease. Building permit, if so obtained, would have a one-year lifespan. So staff recommends that you offer the developer a one-year lease on that parcel, and that can be renewed at council's discretion, and that you signal to the developer that when they obtain a certificate of occupancy, that the property would be deeded over at that time.
And, okay, and what at the end of the 12-month period and has not progressed adequately and it's not renewed, then what happens at that point?
In the event that in a year's time, council is not satisfied with the progress or the development of this renovation, it would be at council's discretion to renew or not renew. And I would wager if there wasn't adequate progress, it would be council's decision not to renew. But if there was adequate progress, the renewal would likely be forthcoming. Also note that the building permit itself, if obtained approximately at the same time, would also be coming to its expiration at the same time. So you would be kicking off a counter that mirrors the building permit process.
Thank you. Anybody have any questions? You've seen the plans that have been submitted.
Mr. Irwin, you saying that the building permit will expire 1 year from that
From the
date
date
also?
obtained.
Okay.
Now, we have a pending zoning permit. That was what brought this to fruition, in that the developer has asked for a zoning permit, which is the first step in a building permit. The building permits I've obtained and others have obtained, they are for 1 year. They have an optional renewal. But if it is our intent to allow this parcel to be used to incentivize this development, then matching the time horizon of the building permit would allow us to work in harmony with the county building permit process.
So the way it's submitted right now, instead of just transferring ownership to him, would lease the property under the understanding that it would not be transferred to him permanently until.
A certificate of occupancy is obtained for a completed
Okay.
project. Yes, sir.
Now, does he have any type of business plan yet, or any type of?
As an individual he's not come to us and sought a microenterprise loan or any other kind of performance agreement, he's still managing this with his own capital. He's not shared with us business plan type materials other than the intent to have a restaurant on the first floor and the lodging on the above floors, which can be seen in the plans attached. That's the part that he's made public. To the extent that there are other aspects of that, it's still a private development.
Does he have any plans to speak with either the chairman of the EDA, of zoning, or anything to do with the town or any town council members? And if he has, please correct me, but, I mean, does he have any, I guess, past history in doing any of this type of work? I mean, it seems like he's been on this plan for a while, but no real extreme action that I can personally see, other than putting new windows in that were somewhat already busted, so.
Yeah, as to his individual history with projects similar to this, I can't comment on. I don't know. Our only experience with him locally has been as the owner of Respiratory Rentals and as the proposed redeveloper of the furniture building, as we colloquially call it. I did tour the building with the owner, and some of your planning staff have done likewise. A significant amount of work has gone on in terms of demolition, in terms of make-ready. It's a drastically different appearance now than it was originally. But I can't comment on the entities, and I'm certain 345 or 325 Franklin LLC has no functional history as it was created solely for this redevelopment. As to Mr. Bain's history, I don't know it personally, and, you know, that's another reason that you would likely want to limit this as to a partnership that has either a chance of success or an end date.
And at this point, he can not move forward unless something is done from our end, or?
Correct. We can't issue a zoning permit because the improvements proposed do go beyond the property line. The building permit cannot be issued because improvements proposed do go beyond the property line. A way to facilitate that is either to go ahead and abandon that right-of-way as was contemplated, I believe, 3 years ago. But what your attorney and I suggest in lieu of that is simply entering into a renewable lease to allow construction with a commitment that the abandonment will occur when a certificate of occupancy is obtained. And that provides an incentive to completion and a green light to start work.
And we're given that, what the proposal is a 1-year time frame.
Given that a building permit is a 1-year document, I recommend you make this the same time frame so that as he is approaching the county to talk about renewing his building permit, he would be coming here to discuss with you extending the lease if needed. And a project of this complexity is likely going to require a renewal of the building permit as well as a renewal of his ability. But keeping them on the same time horizon would make sense.
Any other questions?
It's just hard for me to imagine that 2 months ago, or maybe 3 months ago now, we were talking about claiming this property as a nuisance property, and now we're talking about giving him, I guess, a piece of property. So I still think a year's a long time, but if that's the way that,
That's from the time he obtains a building permit.
I mean, can we give him a cap on how long it takes for him to get the building permits and all of that? Or is that what we're saying is that year process?
You're proposing that 12 months from the signing of a lease agreement, that's what you have. And if the applicant drags their feet in getting the building permit, that's up to them. Your timeline would start as soon as Mr. Boitnott and I assembled a document and had it presented and executed. And that would probably be well in advance of the building permit because the building permit can't proceed until that's done. So it's likely the town's agreement would run in advance of a building permit. And I do agree there's a history of frustration here that as the owner attempted to self-demolish and in many ways save dollars, it was very frustrating. We had a lot of citizens complain. We had a lot of nearby business owners complain. It's been a rocky process getting to this point. But nonetheless, that's where we are. We have a building that has had the interior demolition needed for redevelopment. The owner says they are ready for redevelopment and that they wish to plan on using that piece of right-of-way that's to be abandoned.
So in essence, we have a performance agreement.
Precisely, yes.
Yes. So
Yes, and as part of that performance agreement or lease agreement or whatever you want to call it, in fact, performance agreement sounds better than
Please.
lease agreement. Because we're basically asking him to redevelop the property consistent with his plan within a defined period of time, which in the event that does occur, then the property would be conveyed with the remainder of the property, it would become a larger parcel. But if it fails, the town has not conveyed its legal title to the developer. It still maintains its legal title in the event the redevelopment project does not come to fruition.
in the event the certificate of occupancy is not issued.
Correct. That's the way the language would read, Mr. Sneed.
Yes, and I like those clear, defined, yes, where there is a history of some couple years, not a lot going on that the public can see.
So rather than calling the document a lease agreement, we will call it a performance agreement,
Okay.
That works.
requiring the developer to perform certain things in the future.
Yep.
Upon completion of which, title will then be transferred without any other action of council. And if it doesn't, then the title will not be transferred.
So
I'm okay.
when would the 12-month period begin?
You tell me.
When we issue what we have from the town, or when he obtains a building permit?
When we issue.
No,
When
you-
we issue.
We control it.
You tell me, I
We
mean,
control the shots, if anything.
if you want to make the performance agreement, give it a term of 12 months, you would then have the option at the end of that term to extend it for additional time or not.
Okay.
Once this happens, let's say it's 3 years down the road, or let's say it's 10 years down the road, and they would not be able to separate the parcel that we would be conveying to them they couldn't sell the building, and you see what I'm saying?
No,
In other words, it would then be tied with the original structure, is that correct?
yes, sir. The Angle Street area it will be added to
The parcel.
Oh.
the existing
Right.
parcel.
It wouldn't be like, I'm gonna keep this little part back here, but I'm gonna,
No, no,
Right,
they would
in-
join.
they would become one.
Right, in the event that a CO is issued in this timely fashion, which we certainly hope, because it's a grand old building and a great part of our history, the conveyance would include the abandonment of the separating line and the parcels. The only way to re-separate it would be the attempt to do a minor subdivision agreement, and it wouldn't qualify, it's too small. So once joined, it would be joined forever.
Now, let's just say hypothetically, nothing happens in 6 months, and then magically in 6 months, or excuse me, right after that 6-month period, it's not up to our standards or building code standards. What happens to the progress that has been made from a legal side of things?
We'd still-
Nothing at the end of 6 months.
Or excuse me, the year
But
process.
at the end of a year, if you're dissatisfied, I say dissatisfied, if the developer has failed to perform as required,
Which
then
in this
the
instance would
developer
be a,
have to persuade you to extend, to give him an extension or not. In other words, if the development is still ongoing, but it's behind schedule, you would have to be persuaded to vote favorably to extend the performance agreement for an additional period of time.
Okay, any other questions? All right, we'll find ourselves back in regular session. You've heard the request and the explanation. What's your council's pleasure?
Mr. Mayor, I'm offer a motion that we move forward with the 1-year performance agreement or lease agreement, however you want to, whatever you want to call it, that we move forward with it.
Thank
And if something's not done within that 1 year, then, we make a decision from there.
All right, is there a second?
I'll second that motion of the performance agreement. I will second that motion, yes, sir.
Thank you. Have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. Motion carries. We'll find ourselves in recess again for our second public hearing, and that's for a special use permit for Chastity S. Wade regarding a manufactured home on Bird Lane. Mr. Irvin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will ask your planner, Ms. Heckman, to present this. She is in the conference room and will join you via telephone.
Can everyone hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Chastity Wade is requesting a special use permit to place a 1,791 square foot manufactured home on a 1.14 acre lot on Bird Lane. The property is zoned residential business. Currently, the town only allows manufactured homes in the residential agricultural district. The proposed home, commonly referred to as a double wide, is 28 feet by 68 feet and will be placed on a permanent foundation. The home is built to federal standards known as HUD versus state code. Staff has reviewed the requests, the age and types of homes in the neighborhood, and felt the addition of this home provided an affordable housing option and would not negatively impact the neighborhood. The Planning Commission held a public hearing on the request and recommended approval with a 6-0 vote.
Any public input?
We have one email in support, a neighboring property.
Thank you.
And Ms. Heckman, the applicant is there with you?
Yes, she is.
If council has any questions, the applicant is available.
Does
Yes.
she wish to say anything?
I'm sorry?
Does the applicant wish to say anything? Ms. Wade want to say anything?
No.
Okay. Any council have any questions?
In addition to the agenda item in your packet, your planner has given you a schematic of the proposed unit. That question did come up at the planning to get an idea of the footprint and size. And just by way of clarification, again, we do allow modular homes under BOCA or state code. We do not allow HUD modulars as a use by right. You have in the past allowed them on a case-by-case basis, evaluating things such as fit with a neighborhood and the need to promote and balance affordable housing within the town of Rocky Mount.
James, have we done one recently?
Yes, sir, you did one 3 months ago, I believe.
Okay, yeah,
We just did one,
yeah. And with that, I mean, I'm,
almost identical.
yeah, and with that, I'm good.
Any other questions? Oh, we'll find ourselves back in regular session. Council, you heard the request and the recommendation. What's your pleasure?
I'll make a motion to approve the request as submitted.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. The request be approved as submitted. Is there any discussion? All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. Motion carries. All right. Okay, next, approval of draft minutes of our January 11th, 2021 regular council meeting. Are there any additions or corrections that need to be made to those minutes? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve the draft minutes?
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to approve the draft minutes. Is there any discussion? All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. Motion carries. Next, approval of consent agenda. You all received a copy of that. You see what's contained therein. Are there any questions or corrections that need to be made?
Other than the two that have already been addressed, I make a motion to approve.
Thank you. Have a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. Is there any other discussion? All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. Motion carries. Next, hearing of citizens. Rebecca, we did not have any comments submitted to the town prior to the meeting?
No, sir.
Okay. Thank you. So we'll move to old business. First, a clarification of COVID leave. Mr. Irving.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This item requires no action. It's simply clarification that came out of last month's meeting. As you're well aware, the Families First Coronavirus Response Act directed the town to award its employees 10 days, which from a mathematical standpoint is 80 hours of COVID leave. We've used those where needed to promote quarantining For example, when we had an outbreak in Public Works, we shut the Public Works Department down for some time. Fortunately, we were able to get it back up with only 3 individuals contacting COVID. We've continued to use it to quarantine staff, and staff, knowing that they have access to that leave pool, have been very eager to notify when they've had exposures that they need to not bring back to our central operations, such as police, finance, water, wastewater. Town council granted 40 hours of additional COVID-related leave last month that is available up until June 30th. From a functional standpoint, your staff in the finance department is interpreting that as cumulative. For example, if an employee still had 10 hours left of their initial batch of Families First Coronavirus Response Act leave, that this new 40 hours adds to that bank. Why is that important? Well, we've had some employees that for quarantining reasons needed to use it that way, and so I'm simply giving council a heads up that for an implementation standpoint, the 40 you granted last month is being added to the existing leave pool. Knock on wood, the vast majority of your staff have not had to use hour 1 of this leave, but the departments that have been impacted have had to use it, and it's been a great asset. So we just want to be sure council was aware of how we were implementing your actions of last month.
Do I have any questions? All right, thank you. Next under old business is a supplemental appropriation resolution for the replacement of the Public Works bucket truck, which purchase has already been approved. You just need a resolution.
Yes, sir. Council directed staff to go ahead and purchase a bucket truck, knowing that the appropriation resolution would come this month. Because of amazing luck and persistence on the part of your Public Works Director, the company actually put us to the head of the line. We took delivery already. So they had 2 trucks on the production line. They gave us the second. It had minor changes from what we wanted. It was designed for more electric work, so it had an insulated boom, but that simply added safety for our staff, and it only added a very minor change to the cost. So as of February, we have quit renting the bucket truck for our service. We have the new vehicle to put in service. We do have to appropriate those funds. Your finance director has drafted an appropriation resolution for the $110,638 out of your general fund balance. Now, keep in mind, $100,000 of this was forecast extra revenue with our budget reassessment. So hopefully by the time the dust settles in June, we're only tapping fund balance by $10,000. But regardless, in order to pay the bill, we have to appropriate funds. Additionally, I'll point out that we require 5 votes for this. So, Mr. Mayor, we will ask you to vote on this tonight because your charter requires 5 votes.
Yes, sir. Anybody have any questions?
I make a motion, we finally go ahead and get this truck.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. We approve the supplemental appropriation resolution. Rebecca, roll call, please.
Councilmember Mark H. Newbill,
Yes.
Councilmember Billy W. Stockton,
Yes.
Vice Mayor John W. Sneed,
Yes.
Councilmember J. Tyler Lee,
Yes.
Mayor Stephen C. Angle.
Yes. Motion passes. So, all right, that's all in old business. We move to new business. First item is review and consideration for the Rocky Mount Fire Department to give the fire safe house to Scruggs Fire and Rescue. Mr. Irvin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This item was brought to you by the fire chief. I advised that I could cover it on his behalf, and I'd wager Councilmember Lee can comment on as well. Some time back, the Rocky Mount Fire Department acquired a safe house trailer. This is a training trailer to teach child fire education. The trailer has a current value of about $10,000. The optimism in acquiring the trailer was fantastic, and we certainly applaud them, their desire to put it to work. However, our department is the busiest department in the county, and the staff spends most of their active time or eligible time actually rolling on calls and fighting fire. And they have not had the time that they had wanted to have to implement the training of putting the safe house to work and visiting schools and reaching out to children. In looking at this issue, the Scruggs Fire and Rescue Department said that they had the manpower and the time and would love to take that equipment to schools in the county and educate children in fire safety. Your fire chief asks that if council would support him giving that trailer to the Scruggs Department, since it is an asset that's going from one public entity to another public entity. It's a fair transfer, but it does require council's blessing. Scruggs Fire Department has agreed to accept the trailer, to use it for its mission, and to keep it in good working order.
How long has it been since Rocky Mount Fire Department has used it? Do you have any idea? I'm sorry?
About a year and a half.
About a year and a half.
And I think I was one of the last ones to actually use it. Me and a couple other gentlemen.
Anybody have any questions?
I make a motion that we gift this to Scruggs because we know that Scruggs will do a good job. And it will be a good peace offering to public safety.
I second it.
I have a motion and a second that we donate the safe house trailer for fire education to Scruggs Fire and Rescue. Is there any other discussion? All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. Motion carries. But that's all we have under new business. Committee reports, we have none at this time. Any other matters, concerns? Who's on Rise and Shine this morning? Okay. Very good. I wasn't real enthusiastic there.
No, it's a unique time to be on Rise and Shine with the social distancing and other issues. We did get to give Jamie a bit of a hard time over his 4 to 9 inches. That was the enjoyable part of the morning. He takes it well.
Oh, yeah. All right, if there's nothing else, we have 2 items under closed meeting this evening. First, under section 2.23711A.1, discussion, consideration of interviews of prospective candidates, and that applies to the Board of Zoning Appeals, the EDA, Town Manager's Office, and Town Council. And also under section 2.23711A.5, discussion of prospective business or industry. Is there a motion to go into closed meeting under the cited codes?
So moved.
Have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion?